Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 4 Season 11 class tier list. If you're wondering what class to play this season, this video should help you out. Now I'll start by saying that every class can crush all the content in the game. There's really no wrong choice here. And if you go to maxroll.gg, you can find build guides for every class. Follow those guides, you're going to destroy Torment 4 and climb up in the pit or the tower. Now we're also going to state that this tier list is best guesses based on patch notes, based on PTR experience, that's the test server, but this is a season in which a lot is changing. It's a big adjustment and rework season. Defenses are entirely different, so a lot of builds that relied on Fortify is completely different now. It's a healing mechanic, so like Druids are losing a lot of toughness with the Fortify rework. Armor and resistances are no longer capped, they're following a different formula now. Monsters are getting deadlier in many ways. And then the season theme, Sanctification. This isn't just a gimme. This is something you're going to have to really work for. And if you get lucky and put in the time, it can be a big win that really boosts your character's power. So again, these are best guesses. Stay tuned for updates to this tier list as the season goes on. You know, maybe there's going to be a big surprise, like I got to add a new class to this list. And you'll be able to find all of my video guides for this season on my website, Rhykker.com, which takes us to a word from this video's sponsor. I built my website using Squarespace, and I was able to do everything myself quickly and easily and with no education in the field, all thanks to how easy Squarespace is to work with. Squarespace offers a ton of pre-made, professionally designed website templates for any kind of website. It also offers Blueprint AI. That's an AI-enhanced website builder to help you fully customize a beautiful-looking, personalized website made exactly for your needs and your unique identity. Squarespace even has optimized SEO tools so that you can launch your website and start getting views as quickly as possible through search engine traffic. It even has analytics to then review where your traffic's coming from. You can sell products or services, and Squarespace provides everything you need to engage customers. Easy online payment methods, built-in tools for inventory, shipping, and fulfillment. You can even do custom merch. You send in your designs, and Squarespace handles everything else. Basically, if you want to build a website, I recommend Squarespace. So, head to squarespace.com/Rhykker or click the link in the description below to start your free trial and use code Rhykker to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain when you're ready to launch. That's squarespace.com/RHYKKER and use code Rhykker. So as we move into our tier list here, I'm going to quickly define my criteria. How high or low a class is on my tier list depends on how it performs in these 4 categories. And I weigh these in the following order from most important to least important. So first off, how good they are at speed farming Torment 4 content. That's the bread and butter of what you're doing. Number 2 is how well this class can push into high pit levels above Torment 4, or tower levels, the new mechanic that'll be coming later in the season. Number 3 is how good they are at taking on lair bosses, because that's where you're farming your uniques. And then the least important part is how well they do in the 1 to 60 leveling experience. Now again, every class can be good at all of these things to various degrees, but what I'm really looking at here is, if you take this class, are you locked into like one build, or do you have options? So for me, an ideal balance state is that every class has multiple excellent builds in all of these categories. As we talk through every class, we're going to talk about the solid build options that are available to you. If you're just looking for which class has like the best build, we'll cover that kind of stuff as well. And later on, I'll have another video with my top 10 builds for the season. So now, as we move into the tier list itself, I gotta say that the overall state of balance is probably better than it's ever been. So we're going to start with the C tier with the Sorcerer. And I'm going to say that in my initial version of this tier list, I actually had Sorcerer in B tier. I had no one in C tier. That's how close things were. I ended up being a little harsher in my criteria to bump Sorcerer down to just have a bit of separation between these tiers, because it's not as useful to you folks, everyone's in the same tiers, but just be aware that like my C tier of this season isn't as bad as my C tier of past seasons. And I'm going to stress right off the bat that Sorcerer is not a bad class, and it possibly is going to have the best build in the game. Crackling Energy is emerging as a monstrously powerful Sorcerer build for all content in the game, starting from leveling. So if I were to make a Sorcerer in Season 11, I'm going to level Crackling Energy, and I'm just going to stick on Crackling Energy forever. It is the one build to rule them all. Now you're going to say, well, how does that make sense, Rhykker? Why is a Sorcerer in C tier if it has the best build in the game? Because again, the way I categorize things is, do you have other options? And the answer really is no. If you're going Sorcerer, you're going Crackling Energy. For speed farming, you could do Frozen Orb, you could do Hydra, you can do Lightning Spear, but none of these builds hold up in bossing or pit pushing, and Crackling Energy is probably better at those builds at speed farming anyway. I'll also quickly mention that you don't have to level with Crackling Energy as a Sorcerer. Sorcerer probably has the greatest amount of options with solid leveling builds. So you can do Hydra, Incinerate, Chain Lightning. Those all remain excellent choices for leveling 1 to 60. But once you're 60, you're going to want to go Crackling Energy. So that takes us into the B tier, where we have the Necromancer. Now, the Necromancer's only weakness remains speed farming. It is the slowest of all the classes, and that's really what brings it down into B tier. For Necromancer, leveling Minion really is the way to go now. It is going to be outperforming Blood Surge. Blood Surge was the old classic, but Minion is pulling ahead at this point. But then once you're level 60, Blood Wave, as well as Shadow Blight, those remain solid options. Those two builds will probably push the deepest into the pit for Necromancer. Against bosses, Shadow Blight doesn't hold up as well. Blood Wave remains very strong against bosses. Bone Spear actually comes in as a pretty good bossing option. For speed farming, Shadow Blight is going to beat out Blood Wave. You could even stick with a Minion build for speed farming. But if I were going Necromancer, I would level with Minion. Then I would use an endgame Minion build to farm up Blood Wave and Shadow Blight, and I would alternate between those two. Basically, I would use Shadow Blight for speed farming, and for bossing, I would use Blood Wave, and for the pit, whichever I feel like. And that takes us into the A tier, which is going to be pretty crowded. And we'll start with the Druid. I'm putting the Druid slightly behind the others here, and this is because the Druid remains one of the weaker 1 to 60 leveling classes. It's not as bad as it used to be, but you're not going to level as fast as other classes can. You can level with Companion, you can level with Pulverize, you can even do a Lightning Storm. You're going to get a nice power boost once you hit level 15 and your, animal spirits unlock. Now that you don't have to refarm that again every time. And then in endgame, Companion and Pulverize actually remain some of your top options. They're going to push the deepest into the pit. They're excellent at bossing. For bossing, you can even work in a Flesh Render build, but it doesn't hold up as well in other content. Really, the only weakness of Companion and Pulverize is they're not going to be as fast for speed farming. That's where Cataclysm can come in. Cataclysm, yes, it's still a thing, but it has fallen from grace. So really, like, outside of speed farming content, you're not going to want to run Cataclysm. There's still some weird snapshotting shenanigans going on, but it will be your best speed farmer. So if I were to make a Druid in Season 11, I would level either with Companion or Pulverize. If I happen to get the Shockwave aspect, I'll go Pulverize, but otherwise I'll probably stick on Companion. Then once I get to endgame, I'll stick with whichever of those builds I was on, and then I'll farm up a Cataclysm just for speed farming. Also in the A tier, we have the Rogue. Now, pretty consistently over the seasons, I put Rogue fairly high up in the tier list. It's never the best. It's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I don't think I would ever say Rogue is the best class. It never really has like the best builds, but it's just always solid and reliable and never is really a bad choice. It almost always has multiple options of builds you can go with. Leveling 1 to 60, you can do Dance of Knives. I mean, it's probably the most fun and the best option, but Flurry also is a very good option. And in general, in endgame, you got a lot of solid choices, right? You got Flurry, you got Death Trap, you got Heartseeker, you got Twisting Blades has risen again. These all perform really well in endgame altogether. When it comes to speed farming, Death Trap is going to pull ahead of the rest of those. But in bossing, Death Trap doesn't really hold up as well. Rain of Arrows, Heartseeker, and Rapid Fire, those are the top bossing options. But then for pit pushing, you're looking at Rain of Arrows, Heartseeker, and Twisting Blades as your best options. Rogue's got a lot of builds that specialize in different things. And even though I'm saying these are your best options for this, in general, any build that I've highlighted here will perform well enough in other categories. If I were to play a Rogue in Season 11, I would level with Dance of Knives. Then I would create a Heartseeker build for most endgame content. And then I would make a Death Trap build just for speed farming. And that takes us to the Spiritborn, also in A tier. Spiritborn's got a couple excellent options for leveling 1 to 60. You got Evade, you also got Quill Volley, two different enough playstyles. Arguably, Evade is faster, and Evade also is going to carry you into the end game. Honestly, if you go Spiritborn, and I'm likely to start the season Spiritborn, I'm probably going to take Evade to level 1 to 60 and then just stick on Evade because it holds up in all endgame content. One of the strongest builds in the game. Probably not the strongest, absolute strongest overall, but it's going to be an excellent speed farming build. It's going to be excellent against bosses. It's going to be excellent for pushing in the pit. If you don't want to stick with Evade, you can also go with Beast Strike. This is a new emerging build. It's going to be excellent in the pit and at bossing. It won't be as fast at speed farming. You really can't beat Evade for speed farming. But if you are just tired of doing Evade all the time on a Spiritborn, Beast Strike, again, it is a new emerging build. There's a build guide on maxroll.gg for it. This is a new way to play Spiritborn. It's called the Beast Strike build because it uses the Jaguar main hall ability, which is on every 15th hit, you get a Beast Strike, which does a ton more damage. So this build actually ramps up like 1,000,000 hits per second against enemies. Outside of that, for pit pushing, Payback remains a solid choice, but it doesn't hold up as well in other content. It's quite a bit slower and not as good at bossing. Now that takes us to the S tier. Can you believe it? I've actually got Barbarian in S tier. At this point, the only weakness of the Barbarian is leveling 1 to 60. It and the Druid are kind of in the second tier behind all the other classes who are much faster at 1 to 60. You do have a lot of options for leveling with Barbarian, because none of them are particularly great, but, you know, you can level with Hammer of the Ancients, Upheaval, Whirlwind, Double Swing, Rend, whatever you fancy. It won't make too big of a difference. You'll still be behind all your friends on other classes, but once you get into the endgame, boy, do you have some choices for just general endgame. You know, Lunging Strike will probably be the overall strongest choice for the Barbarian, but Hammer of the Ancients going to be really good. Earthquake's going to be really good. Whirlwind, the Earthquake variant, is going to be really good. So, like, in this version, you are whirlwinding. That's the gameplay, but your damage is coming from Earthquake. So your Whirlwind is an Earthquake delivery system. So you can either go with straight up Earthquake or Earthquake via Whirlwind. The play styles do feel distinct enough. For speed farming, Lunging Strike, Earthquake, and Earthquake Whirlwind, right? Those are 3 excellent choices. For bossing, Bash, Lunging Strike, Hammer of the Ancients, even the Kick Barb, all going to be great against bosses. For pit pushing, Kick, Lunging Strike, Earthquake, Hammer of the Ancients, Bash, you have a lot of options here. Even Whirlwind, even though Earthquake Whirlwind should be pretty good at pushing in the pit. So as you can see, Barbarian really has like the widest breadth of builds to go with. Now that said, there's probably one that you've heard kind of repeated in every category here, and that is Lunging Strike. So if I were to play a Barbarian in Season 11, first off, I would level with any of those leveling builds. You know, if an item drops for me that better suits one of those builds, I'd lean into that. But then once I would hit 60, I would go Lunging Strike because it is the one build that is excellent at all of the endgame content. But maybe I get a GG drop for a different build. There's a lot of Barb builds that, again, are going to excel in different categories of endgame. So maybe my Lunging Strike build doesn't have all the GG gear that I need, but then I get like an excellent item for Bash. Okay, well now for pit pushing and for bossing, I'm going to swap to my Bash build. How often does it happen that you get a really good drop and it's like, oh, well, I'm not going to run this build because this build isn't as good as my other builds? For the Barbarian, if you get GG drops, you're more likely to be like, oh, I could actually use this build. This is a good build. And that's why I got Barbarian up here in S tier. But now I turn the question to you folks. What class are you planning to play in Season 11? Sound off in the comments. Also, folks, we're doing our Patreon supporter shirt again this year. So if you want to get your name on the shirt, the 2024 shirt is available in the shop. You have until December 31st. Even a $1 pledge on patreon.com/Rhykker will get your name on the shirt. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.